They call me Coper. Oh my God, there's such meatheads. Look at these fucking retards. Yeah, I know, so gross. It's already happened. This has already happened. I know several guys.
Now, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we can say for certain it's going to be really ugly. So they hate Donald Trump. Fine. But they don't get to destroy America's justice system.
Welcome, everyone, to a live edition of Canada's most irreverent talk show, which, if you are not careful on autocorrect, is remarkably similar to Irrelevant, which describes Canada's third party led by Jagmeet Singh. So we try not to get too much confusion going on there.
I'm here today to recruit some of you to go fight in the war in World War III. When you join Ukraine's Foreign Legion, we're going to train you. You don't even need any training. We're going to teach you. As a matter of fact, we prefer if you didn't have training because we don't want somebody that's all messed up. We want to teach you your gun skills. You are a coward, and I'm a hero. This is a hero. You would never know what it's like, Paul, to be like this. You will never know what it's like to be president. You will never know.
A free market solution to the problem of marginalization is something like the offering of a true diversity. It's like, yeah, you're only 5'2", so you can't play basketball, but you might be a damn good jockey. Exactly. And if we have enough games, exactly that, and then people can trade on their idiosyncrasies. And you see,
he went on The View, and he sat down with the shrews of The View, and they went off on Ron DeSantis in a completely insane way. Enjoy.
There's this war against trans people.
And LGBTQ plus people and people who are othered.
And cabaret people.
It's a circle of life.
Yeah. Why are they doing it?
For power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is about power, and you can always trace it back to the money. You say that all the time.
Yeah.
It's follow the money, follow the power at any cost. It's very hypocritical. The leading cause of death in children are guns!
Yeah.
I know it's the morning and I'm not supposed to be screaming, but they're guns.
Yeah.
Not drag queen. Not drag queen.
No.
Leave us alone!
Yes.
And it's a distraction. It's a distraction on purpose. We don't know what to pay attention to.
All right, so I don't know if he considers himself or herself part of the LGBTQ plus community or whatever with the nail polish, whatever, sort of irrelevant. But just to be clear, there is no war on LGBTQ people. Nobody's trying to arrest them. No one's trying to put them in jail. No one is saying that consenting adults can't live as they wish. Really, no one in any version of what happens in this country that is anything remotely close to mainstream or has anything to do with the legislative process in any state. No one's coming for anybody. No one's arresting trans people here in Florida. No one's arresting gay people. It's just crazy. But there's a war on trans people. That's what he said, and she agreed. There's a war on LGBTQ. Does it? What does? I know Q means queer, but what does that mean? That just means you're just like a little bit like this. You'll just kind of sleep with anyone? Okay. And then there's a war on cabaret. What? These people are genuinely insane. The View, years from now, they should put The View in a time capsule, and the aliens will come down one day, and they will open it up, and they will watch The View, and they'll be like, better get out of here.
Judge Cruz, you handled a case called ViaNet Operating Group v. Maurice. Is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
And you were reversed in that case? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You handled a case called Muden v. University of Colorado. Is that right?
I believe so, Senator, yes.
And you were reversed in that case, right?
I believe it.
The Vigil?
Yes, Senator.
And you were reversed in that case, too?
A portion of that was reversed as well.
You handled a case called Vreeland v. Olson, Key Bank National Association v. Williams, or Renault v. Cardenas. And were you reversed in that case? Do you remember being reversed in that case?
Senator, I'm not specifically recalling that case.
Okay. Well, I've got others here. cases that you handled in which you were reversed. Tell me why you've been reversed so often, Judge. Thank you, Judge. Tell me how you analyze a Brady motion.
How I analyze a Brady motion?
Yes.
Senator, in my 4.5 years on the bench, don't believe I've had the occasion to address a Brady motion in my career.
Do you know what a Brady motion is?
Senator, in my time on the bench, I've not had occasion to address that, and so it's not coming to mind at the moment what a Brady motion is.
Do you recall the U.S. Supreme Court case Brady v. Maryland?
I do recall the name of the case, Senator, yes.
And what did it hold?
I believe that the Brady case, Senator, I believe the Brady case involves something regarding the...
Tell me how...
Okay. This might be the most embarrassing thing to watch. For anybody, it could very well be the most embarrassing thing on earth to watch. I'm going to go out and give this gentleman the absolute benefit of the doubt. We have all had those moments. Forget what a Brady motion is. You have to have a full frontal lobotomy to not be able to recognize a Brady motion.
We are going to do something a little bit different on today's episode. We're having our first ever guest on the Alberta Roundup. We will be speaking with Pastor Derek Reimer.
But forget about inflation or our increasingly bellicose adversaries. Pay no mind to fentanyl, the rising crime rate, or drag queen story hour. That was a mistake. I'm talking about Mother Nature, and boy, it's become a mother. Of course, this real threat to humanity, it's never really gone away. Its delivery date just keeps getting changed. The New York Times delivers this ominous warning.
Very forceful voice in the COVID dissident community, but a late emerging one. You want to explain how you ended up as a COVID dissident?
The problem is that we're simply not educated on the evils of communism. So when people see communist heroes, look like Che Guevara on a t-shirt, they go, oh, that's a freedom fighter. When actually, if you scratch the surface, the Cuban regime were pretty brutal, to put it mildly.
I think, and that's by design, I'll put on my tinfoil hat for this, because I think Western media outlets, and this is something I cover extensively in this book, had so much blood on their hands, and they ran so much interference, not for communism as an ideology, which we can understand. Okay, someone has this worldview, they're promoting it, that's so on and so forth, but for literally Stalin and the atrocities. And, you know, there's a great movie called Mr. Jones about how Gareth Jones, who'd been a British reporter, got out of the train a few stops earlier and exposed what was going on in the Holodomor with the starvation of the Ukrainians. And it wasn't just that this was being kept quiet by Western sources, is that he was personally derided as, you know, a liar, someone who's kind of had these prejudices.
Reporting for Rebel News. Pastor Derek Reimer was back in court today for a bail hearing for his most recent arrest that occurred on alleged breach of his bail conditions. Rebel News has been on the case of Pastor Derek Reimer after he was initially charged with causing a disturbance, mischief, and 6 other counts of harassment after protesting at a children's Reading with Royalty or Drag Queen Story Hour at Seton Public Library on February 26th. At this event, Derek was forcefully removed from the room and thrown to the ground after attempting to voice his concerns with the group while sharing the good news.
Welcome to Truthly Thursday with Scott Campbell and Jay Shaw. Today we will cover some of the breaking news of the week, some of the underlying stories, and dig just a little bit deeper. As you all know, there are very few places to find the truth these days. Without further ado, let's go!
Truthly Thursdays, everybody. Welcome back once again. Thursdays are usually kind of, you're getting towards the end of the week. Maybe you've had enough of the week, so we figure, you know, truth should be on Thursdays. Because, you know, Tuesday you need something to lighten it up. So do Fake News Tuesdays, Sunday Fun Day, you know, lighten the mood. by Thursday, you're exasperated, you're done. So that's kind of our thinking there. And I'm done. I'm exasperated with everything. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I am a little exasperated though. There's I mean, on one hand, I will say this: I'm excited for another small victory. A small victory, like I say, against the machine, the liberal machine, in the fact that Donald Trump hasn't been arrested. Not that I'm a huge Trump supporter or anything like that, but it's nice that that he was able to rally support and that pressure applied probably had something to do with the grand jury's decision that indictment isn't going to happen. That hasn't been announced officially yet, but that's very much what it looks like so far. And Judge Janine kind of backed that up too on the 5. So I mean that's definitely a positive. I see that as a positive note.
I see that as a positive, but I also see a bit of a problem in that they're desperately going after this man because they know if he gets elected, their whole facade is done, their whole charade is done, and so they're doing everything they can to get at this guy and to get it so that I think mostly they were going for, like I think we saw in our last show, they were mostly going for that mugshot. They wanted that mugshot so that they could just immortalize it. And so that all you would ever think of when you saw number 46, I think he was 45 or 46. Was he 45 or was he 46? Must be 46. No, must
46.
be 45.
Yeah, 46.
46. Okay. Either way.
Yeah, Joe Biden's the 46. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So 45, anytime you thought of 45, you would think of that mugshot. That's what they're going for. And whether or not, I mean, he would never be convicted of it. It was beyond the statute of limitations, but they've tried to arrest him for everything they can, to the point where now they're going over after stuff that was already thrown out previously because they had no case. And they decided to try it again, even though the district attorney was like, no, it's not going to work. They found a DA that would go for it, and it's a bit unnerving when they're going to such great lengths to eliminate their political opponents. And some say that that's the sign of tyranny, when you jail or silence your political opponents. But I mean, what do I know?
I mean, I don't know so much that it would work as desired. I think in all actuality, had they arrested him, I really think that it was a lose-lose for them. I think that the way that it was played by Trump, I think that it then became a lose-lose. They didn't get their quick strike, and before anybody knows that they've got their mugshots, it was like there was a lead up to, and all the Republicans got to mobilize, and everybody got to get in touch with their lawyers and everything. And so I feel like at this point, if they arrest him now, they've already lost their first mover bonus on this one. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree. I think like if they do it now, it looks kind of dumb. But
and then also that they've thanks to the Bidens, everybody's just desensitized to corruption at the top. I mean, you look at the Hunter Biden thing, and it's like everybody's already hardened. They're like, oh yeah, presidents and their kids, Clinton and Biden and Trump, and they're all fucked up. Like, it's like people are kind of like, oh well. I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird that they'll support, the left especially will support, go after Trump and arrest him for potentially having slept. I think it's paid a hooker, and actually
a porn star,
a porn star, or whatever. And actually, it wasn't even him; it was his assistant or somebody that paid them or something like it. And they already found that out, and they already tried to get him for that before, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
So it was dumb that they brought that up again. But I guess it's just like it shows how desperate they are, and that's a good sign.
They're very desperate.
I suppose that's a good sign. I think that the cabal is slowly unraveling. I know that the WEF is falling apart, and that's always a good thing because they're as evil as it gets.
Yeah.
I also
and a
know
lot of
that-
people were very upset that Greta Thunberg just got an honorary degree in theology. It was a really bad decision for them to pick theology as the basis for which to give her an honorary degree, because basically that just says, oh, so what she's doing is actually it's theological. It's actually an ideology. So we've been saying it's an ideology, and that's been denied. But now you're literally admitting, well, this is our fucking priest.
But isn't, isn't theology that's a study of God?
Yeah.
So how does she
Yeah.
get us?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't.
That's what I mean. They're admitting that what they're doing is an ideology, because if their poster child
Sure as fuck ain't science.
is theology, then you're calling it theology, which makes it on par with the Bible.
Awesome.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Like
No
who's?
kidding.
I don't know who thought of that, but that was like, wow. Yeah, I can't wait to hear what Mr. Neil Ferguson has to say about that. He's gonna rip that one apart. I know it.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? Speaking of ideologies, there's an ideology that seems to be creeping its way into North America, specifically Canada and the U.S. At an ever increasing and an ever alarming rate. And I think it's important to note that it's not just in Canada here. So I'm going to roll a clip for us here to give you an idea of what we're talking about. This is our buddies over at True North here. Should pop that up here.
Shout out to Ratioed.
Last month,
Shout out to
Justin
Richard.
Trudeau very confidently told us that questioning the loyalty of Liberal MP Han Dong to Canada should not be tolerated, and that any insinuation that Han Dong was a willing participant in a Chinese communist-backed plot to interfere in our democracy was stoking anti-Asian racism. You all remember this.
Just a follow-up on that question on CSIS and Han Dong. Are you saying that they didn't warn you, or were you warned and you chose to dismiss it for those reasons? Just wanted some clarification.
Once again, one of the things we've seen, unfortunately, over the past years is a rise in anti-Asian racism linked to the pandemic, and concerns being arisen around people's loyalties. I want to make everyone understand fully.
This is the good old
Han
liberal
Dong,
playbook.
is
Racist.
an outstanding
Racist.
member of our team.
Racist.
And suggestions that he is somehow not loyal to Canada should not be entertained.
Funny how things can change in just 1 month. After the most explosive CSIS whistleblower allegations yet, that Liberal MP Han Dong advised Chinese consular staff, members of the communist regime in Beijing, to withhold the release of the two Michaels because it would benefit the Conservative Party of Canada. Han Dong was forced to resign from the Liberal caucus last night on the House floor. In a pathetic attempt to try and gain sympathy from Canadians, Han Dong broke out in a completely unscripted, emotional breakdown on the House floor, crying like a coward. Did Trudeau give Dong some acting lessons before his resignation speech last night? Also, to top it all off, Justin Trudeau's weak wannabe Twitter attack dog, Mark Garrettson, wrote something so false on Twitter that Twitter had to slap a context label or a fact check on the Liberal MP's tweet. Drop a like in the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and the comment question for the episode is this. Do any of you watching this video question the accuracy of the CSIS leaks reporting coming from Globe and Mail and Global News? Let me know, and let's get into it. Sam Cooper's latest reporting in Global News is by far the most explosive CSIS leaks reporting and the most damaging to not only Justin Trudeau's credibility, but the credibility and viability of this government. That's how serious these reports are. Take a look at this article. Liberal MP Han Dong secretly advised Chinese diplomat in 2021 to delay freeing two Michaels, according to sources. Liberal MP Han Dong, who was at the center of the Chinese influence allegations, privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February 2021 that Beijing should hold off freeing Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, according to two separate national security sources. Both sources said Dong allegedly suggested to Han Tao, China's consul general in Toronto, that if Beijing released the two Michaels, whom China accused of espionage, the opposition conservatives would benefit. Oh, the conservatives would benefit from the release of Canadians being arbitraged by our worst enemy. Oh, the horror. Dong also allegedly recommended that Beijing show some progress in the Kovrig and Spavor cases, the two sources said. Such a move would help the ruling Liberal Party, which was facing an uproar over China's inhumane treatment of Kovrig and Spavor. And it just continues to get worse from there. Take a look at this part. When asked to comment on the information provided by sources on the alleged Dong communications, CSIS spokesperson Eric Balsam wrote in a statement that the service could neither confirm nor deny the authenticity of the information. Weeks after the conversation between Dong and Consul General Han, China announced it had tried Spavor and then Kovrig behind closed doors on espionage charges. These allegations are just insane. And if true, the claims against Dong amount to some serious crime, heavy-duty crime, which carries with it some heavy-duty penalties. But it is important to mention that these are just allegations. These are anonymous sources, and they are simply allegations at this point. So it is important to make that point clear. But in what many are describing a tacit admission on the House floor, Liberal MP Han Dong immediately resigned from Liberal caucus in disgrace last night when this story dropped. If you've got nothing to hide, then why resign from Liberal caucus? Incoming Liberal tears on the House floor. Get ready.
I rise on a point of order. I have informed the Prime Minister and the leadership of the Liberal Party caucus that I will be sitting as an independent at the conclusion of these remarks. Mr. Speaker, I'm in your hands as to what happens next. To all my colleagues in the Parliament, media reports today quoting unverified and anonymous sources have attacked my reputation and called into questions my loyalty to Canada. Let me be clear. What has been reported is false, and I will defend myself against these absolutely untrue claims. To my family, and in particular, my parents, who brought us here to Canada, to my wife, Sophie, and my kids, I love you. I thank you for all the support and love you give me. The truth will protect us. Our honor and our family will get through this together. Sorry about that. Thank you, Speaker.
Now, did any of you catch what happened at the end of Han Dong's resignation speech? Did any of you see how the Liberal caucus responded to Han Dong's resignation? Members of Justin Trudeau's cabinet and the rest of the Liberal caucus stood up and gave Han Dong a standing ovation. They gave Han Dong, a man who was allegedly involved in what can only be described as treasonous behavior, allegedly, a standing ovation on the House floor. That is an absolute disgrace. Do they not see what's going on here? Is there some blind loyalty amongst the Liberals that they just clap like seals no matter what anyone says or no matter what anyone is accused of doing? Now, there are some ruthless comments on YouTube over Han Dong's resignation speech. I cringe every time a Liberal says, "Let me be clear," because it usually precipitates a mouthful of lies. If you always hear our so-called Prime Minister, who always wants to be so politically correct about his totalitarianism in Canada, then he should actually go and have this guy removed from the House. But my guess is he was thrown under the bus to protect Justin Trudeau. Also, if you got nothing to hide and did nothing wrong, and he said over and over again that there was no reason to resign, you only resign if you're dirty. So Justin Trudeau, when is it your turn to resign? Because Canadians know you're dirty. His loyalty to Canada should be expressed by a total resignation, not just from the Liberal Party. Oh, I think Han Dong's eventual resignation or forced removal from the House of Commons is truly imminent. But at this current moment, Han Dong is still a member of parliament. He is still the elected representative of the Don Valley North constituency. All the power and privilege that comes with being an MP in Canada, Han Dong still possesses, despite the allegations made against him. Earlier on in the day, before the Global News reporting dropped and before Han Dong's eventual resignation from the Liberal caucus, Dong gave a 20-minute scrum to reporters answering their questions about all the previous reporting about him and about Chinese interference. Dong denied the allegations that he was involved in a Chinese interference network, and he bravely proclaimed that he was a Canadian, loyal to Canadians. I'm sure you really convinced those journalists there, Dong. And at one point in this 20-minute scrum, he was sweating so profusely that he had to take his jacket off just to be able to keep answering questions.
Sorry? Do you support a public inquiry into everything that's come out in the last few months?
I think that government's or the Prime Minister's decision to have a special repertoire to look into this and make a decision whether a public inquiry is needed, I think it's very decision. So, sure, I have my personal best interest. I want the truth to come out, in my defense. But I think it's a good decision. We also have a study at the NCCOP committee, and so I look forward to the decision.
And do you dispute that the?
Just a second. It's good.
Sorry.
With the code.
Do you dispute that the Chinese consul helped in your nomination, or do you only dispute that you knew about
Sweating
it?
bullets there,
I just
bud.
answered this question, but I'll say it one more time. I've never been offered, nor would I accept any help from a foreign nation. I'm a Canadian.
Now, all of this brings us back to Justin Trudeau, the man really at the heart of this scandal. It's also important to remember that the CSIS whistleblowers wouldn't be leaking this information if they felt that the federal government, led by Justin Trudeau, was taking this issue seriously. We know this from the Whistleblowers Anonymous op-ed in the Globe and Mail. At the heart of this issue, we have to figure out what Justin Trudeau knew about Han Dong, when he knew it about Han Dong, and what he did about it. Clearly, we know Justin Trudeau did nothing about Han Dong, even if he did know something about him, because until yesterday, Han Dong was a Liberal MP. What exactly the Prime Minister knew and he was made aware of it, that is still in question. And let's not kid ourselves. The drama on Parliament Hill over Katie Telford's testimony and Jagmeet Singh's fake grandstanding trying to look strong, we know that none of it is going to bring us the answers that we need. We already went through this song and dance with the Freedom Convoy inquiry. And you know how we know nothing is going to come from Telford's testimony or David Johnson's special rapporteur appointment? Because David Johnson's special rapporteur mandate was released, and it's not even focused on Chinese interference. It's focused on foreign interference. Yes, foreign interference, not just Chinese election interference, but foreign interference, which we all know will result in David Johnson spending a considerable amount of his time looking into the now debunked claim that the Russians were behind the Freedom Convoy. Next thing you know, Justin Trudeau's ski buddy David Johnson is going to allege that the Papua New Guineans were behind the rise of Pierre Poilievre's political career. That's how ridiculous this is. That's how committed this government appears to be in not addressing Chinese communist interference in our elections. They've diluted David Johnson's mandate so much so that by the time Johnson inevitably calls for a public inquiry, they're going to spend half the time talking about Russian disinformation on the Freedom Convoy, while hoping that all of us just forget about it and move on. Justin Trudeau has repeatedly defended Han Dong, labeled any criticism of Han Dong, any questioning of Han Dong's loyalty as anti-Asian racism. He's done it in the House of Commons and he's done it in press conferences. And by doing so, the Prime Minister has basically said to everyone that he doesn't believe the Globe and Mail reporting. He doesn't believe the Global News reporting. If that was the case, then why would Han Dong resign from Liberal caucus? Supposedly, the Prime Minister holds no value in these CSIS leaks. So how are we supposed to take all of this? What does this mean for Canada? And, more crucially, who else is involved in this network? The original reporting said that there were 11 GTA candidates. Now, we know a couple, but there are quite a few names, 9 or 10 actually, still to be named. We can all draw our own conclusions, but I would advise against doing that. Let's let this process play out. Let's see where these leaks are going to take us. The ratio of the week prize is going to Liberal MP Mark Gerritsen, Justin Trudeau's wannabe Twitter attack dog. Now, Mark is quite used to a swing and a miss on Twitter. It's usually a daily occurrence for him. That's why he turns off comments. But Gerritsen's latest tweet was so wrong that even Twitter had to put context on the tweet. They had to fact check Mark Gerritsen. Gerritsen was trying to defend the Liberals' blatant filibustering of Conservative and opposition MPs trying to bring Justin Trudeau's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, to testify in front of committee. Now, of course, fearing whatever Telford might tell Canadians, the Liberals did everything they could to drag their heels and stop Telford from testifying. Now, when attempts to block Telford from testifying became untenable, the Liberals capitulated, and Mark Gerritsen took to Twitter, as he usually does, to defend the Liberals' actions. Take a look at this. I think it's absolutely unacceptable to demand staff appear before committee. The only chiefs of staff to come before committee, to my knowledge, have been after they are out of politics. Having said this, I appreciate Telford's willingness to do whatever necessary to make Parliament work, even if that means breaking a 300-year-old tradition, as said by Pierre Poilievre when he refused to send staff in 2010. And I didn't even see this latest development until recording right now. It gets even better. He got fact-checked twice on the same tweet. You have to see this. On the first tweet in this thread, writes this: Telford has testified multiple times throughout his time in office. She testified in the WE scandal, and then puts a link to the CBC article, and in the Vance investigation, and then another CBC link. There was bipartisan support to hear her testify. Twitter had to put that on a Liberal MP's tweet. And in response to this fact check, Mark Gerritsen continued to double down. Take a look at this. Katie Telford is the only one to appear before committee, to my knowledge, while still in the position. I assumed it went without saying. She has done it before, but given the fact it's all over the media and widely talked about. No, Mark, no one assumed that because you clearly stated that the only chiefs of staff to testify had been when they have left office. So no one assumed you were talking about anyone other than Telford. Nice try. But even still, Mark Gerritsen, I've never seen this before, managed to get fact-checked twice in the same tweet. Twitter, once again, slapped a context label on his follow-up tweet, and they wrote this: 3 of Stephen Harper's 4 chiefs of staff appeared before various parliamentary committees. Ian Brody, Guy Giorno appeared while in the role, and Nigel Wright was called after he was appointed, but before he started in the job. So, Mark, what do you call that? Now, unlike most ratio of the weeks, journalists, blue-check journalists in the establishment oftentimes don't get involved in the comment section of these tweets. But this one was different. Liberal and conservative journalists in this country absolutely pilloried Mark Gerritsen for, like I said, blatantly not telling the truth. Terry Glavin, a national columnist, wrote this: Twitter has had to append one of its disinfo notes to this tweet because it's insanely wrong. Of the Toronto Sun wrote this: Liberal MP Mark Gerritsen is one of Trudeau's pit bulls. He says absolute crap that isn't true, hoping you will believe it. Not only has Telford testified twice, 3 of Harper's 4 chiefs appeared at committee. Previous chiefs too. Mark lies. Brian Passafume of the National Post also wrote this: Mark's tweet here was so questionable it got an explainer tacked on by Twitter. How pathetic. How embarrassing. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with me while I have this temporary backdrop while I'm in the swamp of Ottawa. Everything will be back to normal on Monday. My name is Harrison Faulkner,
Ottawa,
and this is Ratio.
Mr. Harrison Faulkner. So, I mean, right out of the Liberal playbook, as soon as something goes awry, immediately you say, racist. He's a racist. And what I find baffling, like stunning to me, is that somebody who is being accused of treason, high treason, which carries with it very severe penalties, okay? As in, they put you against a wall with a bunch of people with guns, and it's called a firing line, and everybody shoots at you and you die. That's the ultimate penalty for treason. Now, this man's being accused of treason, high treason, and the Liberal caucus is applauding him as he leaves after he's resigned. A tearful resignation, which, if you ask me, was very much staged. I don't buy any of it at all. And again, as soon as somebody questions it, immediately he goes to the non-answer and says, well, there's been a rise in anti-Asian racist behavior and all this stuff. And you know what? I'm going to go out and say it right now. Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, is our enemy. Not the Chinese people, and I just want to clarify, I have nothing against Chinese people as a whole. But the Chinese Communist Party is our enemy. So don't be afraid. Don't like all these politicians are saying the Bayesian Beijing Communist Party. Well, it's not the Beijing Communist Party. It's a Chinese Communist Party. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to have a stance. And this is why they're able to creep in here and take over our government and infiltrate our, all levels of education, everything, because we're too weak and we're too afraid to be labeled as racist to do anything about it. And it's stunning to me, the level of ignorance here at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I would tack on to that we've seen plenty of guilty people cry. Somebody crying like a little baby doesn't necessarily mean they're innocent. In fact, we all know that as children, when our parents caught us in lies and we knew we were going to be in a lot of trouble, most of us cried, right? We just kind of grew out of that. Now, in this case, you're talking about somebody who obviously he's just been thrown under the bus by the Liberals. You're going to be an independent now. We're washing our hands of you. Now, what else has he got to worry about? The Chinese party, the People's Party is now going to be after him too, potentially. Like maybe that's tears of I'm so fucked that I'm going to get it from either direction, and I'm screwed, and my whole family's screwed. Right? Like that's another angle of that too. Yeah. Like, it's so I would say that
we shouldn't be standing idly by while our enemies take over our government and take over our universities and our social media and everything. We shouldn't be standing idly by and just letting it happen in sort of fear of being labeled a racist. Because again, it's not a race thing. It's who is our enemy and who is not our enemy. And the Chinese Communist Party does not like us. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They do not like us. Don't kid yourself. They like the fact that they can take advantage of Canadians. They like the fact that our government is weak and that we're very agreeable. And we'll just, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'll just stay over here and say sorry. They like that about us because they know they can get away with a lot of shit. But they don't like us. They don't like us. They're not going to go over here and say, oh yeah, here, we'll improve your economy and we'll help with your infrastructure. They're going to come over and take our resources and make us all work for them and take over our countries, and that's what they want. They want to take over the world.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself.
Now, the other angle of this story too is this one, and that's, well, it starts with a question: who is the first one off of a sinking ship? The answer to that one is the rats. The rats are always the first ones off a sinking ship. And when we look at who published the op-ed from the whistleblower at CSIS, the Globe and Mail, who ran that story and was critical of the Liberals in this case, Global. You see the rats scurrying to jump off of the boat. Yeah, that's a sign that the wheels are coming off. The wheels are coming off of this ship, and the wheels will never come off for the CBC. The CBC is stuck to that boat forever. But Global, I think you watch, and I would suggest that if you watch for the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a lot more of a favorable look at Pierre Poilievre from Global, because this is just a sign that they're going, and they need the government. They need the government to support them because they're going broke just as bad as CBC. So this is going to be obviously a way to try to get into the good graces of the Conservative Party. I don't know that that's going to happen because I don't see any benefit in any political party supporting a legacy media outlet at this point. I don't think that'll benefit anybody. No, I think that the legacy media is now fruit of the poisonous tree that you can't even touch and hope to get elected. They're going to have to start working with YouTube. I mean, we look at the Tim Pool show. Tim Pool twice now. The second time there was some audio difficulties, but he was twice in the House of Representatives in the Capitol building in the United States, interviewing multiple congressmen and senators, right? Going into the building where they don't normally have reporters in there. And if they are, it's for like a 10-minute little skit for some kind of nonsensical, what would you call it, propaganda piece. Whereas now we see YouTube channels going into Congress and getting long form interviews with a whole bunch of politicians. It's the legacy media is dying, but we know that what's going on with the Canadian Parliament right now, we can see that the cracks are widening, and this is blowing open, and everybody continues to apply pressure. And I want to just thank whoever at CSIS is responsible for this, for being a real Canadian and for doing the job that they took an oath to do, and for risking that. I'm sure that they took great risks in doing that. And if they're happen to be listening one day, or you're listening, there is people out there in these positions who are doing the right thing. It's happening in the United States with the FBI. It's happening with the CIA. It's happening with CSIS. The cream is rising to the top, as they say.
I think it begs to mention too that there are good people in law enforcement. There are good people in counterintelligence, intelligence, etc. So they're not all bad people.
No.
But of particular note, and what should be right in the forefront here is the fact that the whistleblower, so somebody from our Canadian Secret Service Intelligence, whatever the fuck it's called, CSIS, had to become a whistleblower, so subvert the regular chain of things to get this report out, because they had made multiple reports to the government and the government was doing nothing about it. And what everybody should pay close attention to is that Trudeau didn't care about the information. He wanted to know who leaked it and wanted to go after the person who was the whistleblower. That was what was most important to him.
And that's exactly what they're doing in the States right now, too. The Democrats, every time that a whistleblower comes out, they're trying to find out who it was. They're sending letters to Twitter saying, we want to know who the reporters are. It's just
well, we all
terrible.
know what the reason for that is, obviously.
Yeah.
Is another
but I mean, it goes to show that it only takes one good person to create a big change, right? So if you're all black-pilled and you think it's all falling apart, and you think that because some woke bank that was working with only the woke portion of cryptocurrency, and some other woke bank that was only working with Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, you think that those things going down in flames is so earth-shattering? Well, look back to 2008 when real banks, huge banks, went out of business. Some were bailed out. Some went out of business for good. We're not anywhere close to that with the financial sector. And to boot, we should be applauding the fact that certain institutions are going out of business, because our financial system's a Ponzi scheme anyway. Let's create our parallel economy. This is the time. Bitcoin has paved the way. Gold is doing great. The barter system is doing great. There's so many people working under the table and in parallel economies already. If you look at the States right now, they have, 2,100 people retiring every month, right? And they have a huge labor shortage, and they're not filling those gaps in because there's people who just aren't doing the 40-hour slave labor bullshit work anymore, because there are parallel economies and we're getting there. And so it only takes these little things to upset great big huge ships, and then you see the rats scurry off, and then we watch the ship go down. And that's and so on that note, not to do a major. Sorry, go ahead.
Just before, I had one more little quick clip to follow up for that one.
Oh, okay.
I just did. I just wanted to throw this in before we change the subject. Just Poilievre in the House of Commons asking some questions, and I just want people to note. Well, I mean, you'll see here. Just 1 second.
1,000 days the two Michaels sat hopeless in a windowless cell, fed in doggy bowls that were slid under their door, going 8 months without seeing consular support. Yet according to Global News, a Liberal MP allegedly contacted the Chinese consulate and encouraged them to delay the release of these two Michaels for partisan liberal gain. The intelligence services that came up with this information to the media would have told the Prime Minister. When did they tell him?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be clear. Bringing back the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, was
Non-answer
the
number
utmost
one.
priority of this government, of all members of this House, of all Canadians across the country. For 2 years, we've worked tirelessly to make sure that these two Michaels, which were arbitrarily detained by China, would be coming back safe home. That's what we did, and that was the only priority. Thinking otherwise is actually false.
Leader of the Opposition.
We have two members of our national security services that have told the media that a Liberal MP told them not to release the two Michaels. I've now twice asked when the Prime Minister, his office, or his department were informed of this startling revelation. So I'm going to ask a third time, and I ask the Minister to answer. When did the Prime Minister become aware of these allegations? When?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
Non-answer
September
number
24th, 2021 was a great day for Canada. It was the day when the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, came back safely home to Canada. And I think it was a day when this government, all members of this House, all Canadians were proud of what we've done, because indeed, the two Michaels were arbitrarily detained for too long in China. And Mr. Speaker, this will always be our priority as a government. We will always stand up against any form of arbitrary detention in state-to-state relations.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This non-answer is extremely troubling. We have revelations from Canada's top security forces told the media that a Liberal MP asked the Chinese consulate to keep two Canadians in torture in a windowless cell. I asked already 3 times, when did the Prime Minister become aware of these revelations? I ask again, when?
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank all the members of this House that were involved in making sure that we could raise the case of the two Michaels for 2 years. Because we worked with friends and allies, different states around the world, to make sure that we could advocate their case, and that on September 20, 2021, they would be coming back here in Canada. And so in that sense, we will always stand up against any form of arbitrary detention. This is part of our priority in terms of foreign policy. In April in Toronto, we will be hosting an arbitrary detention summit, because the world needs to know that what happened to the two Michaels was unacceptable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The importance of this question cannot be overstated. If the Prime Minister knew that a member of his Liberal caucus was working to keep two Canadian citizens arbitrarily and illegally incarcerated in windowless cells, potentially being tortured, he knew that and did nothing, that would be a devastating scandal against our national interests. So I am simply asking for the government to clarify. On what date did the Prime Minister find out the revelations that one of his MPs may have helped keep our people in jail?
Anybody want to guess whether there'll be a natural answer?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knew very well what was happening to the two Michaels, and made sure that his government would be against China in the context of their arbitrary detention. And so in that sense, we will never accept any form of premise that this government and Canadians didn't work enough to bring them back home. It was our priority, and you can be convinced that it will always be our priority when it comes to any form of consular cases or any form of arbitrarily detained Canadians in this world.
Well, I mean, after so many non-answers, I just kind of have to give up. There was more to that clip, but I just can't keep watching it, and that's the farce that our House of Commons has become. Now is that they will ask the same question over and over and over again, and the Liberals will give a different non-answer every time, never once actually addressing the question. And I don't know how they do it. It's like, why would you even go to work? Why even bother showing up?
Because they have the NDP in their pocket. That's why.
Well, no,
it's not new. Every time there's a majority government, they do the same thing. If they have a majority, then they get to do that. In this case, they don't have a majority, but because they've tacked themselves on with the flimsy, weak NDP government, they get to behave as if they have a majority government, even though it's a very narrow minority.
Right? I hear what you're saying, but I would submit that it's never been this bad. And I've been watching the House of Commons for years. I grew up in Ottawa. You know, on and off.
But there's no punishment for them not answering a question, right? Like they've never been forced to do that once, right?
Of course, but what I'm saying is it's never been this bad to the point where they don't feel even any inkling to answer the question because they know they don't have to because they figure nobody's watching it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know. It's just I've never seen it be this. Yeah. This insane.
I've always seen it in all liberal politicians, Democrats too. Like that's their go-to. They don't have the kind of moral fortitude that makes them feel stupid giving non-answers. They're perfectly fine with that because they don't actually have enough moral grounding to realize.
There's a word for that.
How bad it is.
There's a word for that. I think it's. I think it starts with something.
Yeah, narcissistic. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's the word. That's the word.
They're very narcissistic. Yeah, they display empathy in a really shiny, glossy, Facunda kind of way, but it's not real empathy. Real empathy is the way that people behave with their children, right? Your children fucks up. Your child fucks up. They still have to learn from it. They still have to do the right thing. Right, you have empathy for them, but at the same time, empathy can't be the only thing. And virtue signaling and showing, I care so much. Well, then actually do something. Because if you don't do anything, then you don't actually care. You're just saying that you care, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Now, on that note, there's an awful one in Calgary that I heard about, and I haven't looked into it a great deal, but I do have a clip from, again, our friends at True North.
The problem is that we're simply not educated on the...
Wrong one. Maybe I didn't load that one. Shoot. Okay. Sorry, you guys. I thought I loaded something that I didn't.
We'll act it out for everybody at home.
Well, it was on the theme there. There was a law passed in Calgary. A very specific law, like incredibly specific, saying that you may not at any time protest a drag show, a drag queen story hour. You can't be within, if you have any religious or spiritual reason to dispute a drag queen story hour, you can't be within 100 meters of that drag queen story hour. And recently a priest was arrested in Calgary violently, as you saw in the theme. If you watch the theme song, he was dragged to the ground. He was mistreated.
He was a pastor, by the way, just to clarify.
Oh, a pastor. Sorry. Yeah. Well, yeah, a different kind of. He was an acolyte of some kind. Anyway, he's been arrested. He is out on bail, but there's a lot of conditions for his bail that they've gone specifically after him about. And this whole, it's basically that what we're hearing is you are not allowed on any level to dispute these acts. Now, down in Florida, I'm just going to keep pulling this thread. Down in Florida, they have done the opposite of Calgary, and they have said You cannot do drag queen story art. You cannot dress up in a fetish costume and read books to small children or perform in any kind of a provocative way in front of small children. And the response to that was pretty godforsaken. And Dave Rubin covered that. And I'm going to roll it here.
Apparently, he was on American Horror Story, a couple seasons of American Horror Story. He went on The View, and he sat down with the shrews of The View, and they went off on Ron DeSantis in a completely insane way. Enjoy.
There's this war against trans people, which is
LGBTQ plus people and people who are othered
and cabaret people.
And cabaret people. It's a circle of life.
Yeah. Why are they doing it?
For power.
Yeah.
Everything is about power, and you could always trace it back to the money. You say that all the time.
Yeah. Follow the money.
It's follow the money, follow the power at any cost. It's very hypocritical. The leading cause of death in children are guns.
Yes. Yeah.
They're guns.
Yeah.
I know it's the morning and I'm not supposed to be screaming, but they're guns.
Yeah.
Not
drag queens.
Not drag queens.
No.
Leave us alone.
Yes.
And it's a distraction. It's a distraction on purpose. We don't know what to pay. We don't know what to pay attention to.
All right. So I don't know if he considers himself or herself part of the LGBTQ plus community or whatever with the nail polish, whatever, sort of irrelevant. But just to be clear, there is no war on LGBTQ people. Nobody's trying to arrest them. No one's trying to put them in jail. No one is saying that consenting adults can't live as they wish. Really, no one in any version of what happens in this country that is anything remotely close to mainstream or has anything to do with the legislative process in any state. No one's coming for anybody. No one's arresting trans people here in Florida. No one's arresting gay people. It's just crazy. But there's a war on trans people. That's what he said, and she agreed. There's a war on LGBTQ. What does, I know Q means queer, but what does that mean? That just means you're just like a little bit like this? You'll just kind of sleep with anyone? Okay. And then there's a war on cabaret. What? These people are genuinely insane. The View, years from now, they should put The View in a time capsule, and the aliens will come down one day, and they will open it up, and they will watch The View, and they'll be like, we better get out of here. Nothing.
So there's Dave Rubin weighing in on that matter, and how suggesting or restricting a production by virtue of venue is not new. It's not unfair. It's not cruel. It's not an attack. It is what governments are supposed to do. They're supposed to say, you know what, this isn't appropriate for children. Children don't need to have a sexual identity until they're in their preteens. So leave them alone and stop doing this. And good on them. And
if you've got a stance in your life that you feel you should stand up and say kids should be sexualized, you have a serious problem, and you're probably grooming. So the fact that a pastor who has the legal right to protest anything he wants, at least for now, was arrested for standing up for what I feel is a corruption of morals, or standing against, rather, a corruption of morals, is beyond me. And it's very much on purpose. Like, the whole plan, the whole idea here is to corrupt the morals and to corrupt any form of religion and any form of moral compass, to the point that you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground, so that you don't have any will to have right, to have stand up, and to have rule of law, and to have values, and to have morals, because when you do that, when you have no morals, when you have no values, your society is weak, your people are weak, and they don't know what to stand up for, because they've become weak, or they don't have the balls to stand up for anything, or the gumption or the guts, or not to offend anybody who doesn't have balls, but
And I'm sure we'll see this on the Jordan B. Peterson podcast in the near future. One of his former students during his time at Harvard, for those of you who think that Jordan Peterson isn't qualified to speak on matters of psychology, he taught psychology at Harvard for 10 years. And one of his former students, Megan Murphy, came forward and wrote an article that I certainly do recommend. I will post a link in the description of the video, in which she cites the fact, and this is a fact, this is a fact in the psychology industry, that much of the time that people are in drag, as opposed to people who are transgender, who are actually transgender, people in drag are actually exhibiting sexism. They are displaying a hyper feminized version of a woman that certain men have a fetish towards acting out that behavior, and that their public display of that is in fact displaying their fetish to children. And for that reason, she said it should not only be not allowed, but it should be made a criminal act to display your fetish to a small child. And we see this all the time. Very short skirt, fishnet stockings, a low-cut dress, all these things. That is Japanese porn. That's what that is. And that's a person acting out that they want to be the male/female fetish model of Japanese porn in front of children. It's so beyond the pale, and what it does is it degrades women, and it's not necessarily transgender people who are doing it. When you hear drag queen, that doesn't mean transgender. It could be a straight man doing that, and that is what we need to really take a serious look at, because the P word kind of jumps to mind.
Yeah, and most drag queens, from what I've been told, my education is very limited in this area. But most drag queens, from what I've been told by Erica, is most of them are not trans.
Mm-hmm. And many aren't even LGBTQ.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what the numbers are there, but most, from what I understand, this is just, I suppose our dad. Trans, the drag queens on. There is that.
Yeah. Well, and the data is going to vary region to region, city to city, government to government.
Yeah.
It looks like
looks like we're having some technical difficulties here.
Are we?
I am. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. If people can still see us, people can still see us. If they can't, they're probably better off anyway. So,
I'm monitoring on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're still good.
Another clip for me here, don't you?
I do have another one. Yeah, we're gonna go back over to a new subject on this one, provided by Mr. Michael Malice. Different subject, but not too far afield.
The problem is that we're simply not educated on the evils of communism. So when people see communist heroes, a la Che Guevara on a t-shirt, they go, oh, that's a freedom fighter. When actually, if you scratch the surface, the Cuban regime were pretty brutal, to put it mildly.
I think, and that's by design, I'll put on my tinfoil hat for this, because I think Western media outlets, and this is something I cover extensively in this book, had so much blood in their hands, and they ran so much interference, not for communism as an ideology, which we can understand. Okay, someone has this worldview, they're promoting it, that's so on and so forth, but for literally Stalin and the atrocities. And, there's a great movie called Mr. Jones about how Gareth Jones, who'd been a British reporter, got out of the train a few stops earlier and exposed what was going on in the Holodomor with the starvation of the Ukrainians. And it wasn't just that this was being kept quiet by Western sources, is that he was personally derided as, a liar, someone who's kind of had these prejudices against the.
Well, that was an abrupt ending. Jay, you are muted, by the way. The ghost mute strikes again. No, it's every stream. Just so you know, the ghost pops its head up or rears its head in every stream.
That's one. Yeah. So what we could take away from that, what Michael Malice is talking about is the Holodomor, which is in the 1930s in Ukraine when the Russians basically killed every farmer who had gotten ahead and owned things and was a little bit better at farming. Their thinking there was that those people are privileged, and because they're privileged, they were responsible for the suffering of other people, and therefore they had to be gotten rid of. And there was a journalist from England who was on a little Soviet tour of the Soviet Union where he wasn't supposed to see anything nasty. He got off a train ahead of schedule and went by a concentration camp where they were putting these farmers who were slightly better at farming and therefore owned a house or something criminal like that was depriving everybody else of their liberty in Russia at the time. And we see this throughout history, and currently we're seeing them do this with China in North America and in England. We have them with this pro-China sentiment, and it's so invasive when you really consider that we have the Chinese prime minister meeting with Putin, and we're supposed to be at odds with Putin, and yet we're defending his ally at every turn and extolling the virtues of the communist system. And this is just, we know that the communist Chinese system, the dictatorship, has killed over 100 million people. We know that. And we're okay with that for some reason. And it's basically because they keep the leftists, the Marxists want other countries to keep trying out socialism because they think it's going to work. At some point, somebody's going to get it right, and it's not going to turn into a murderous oblivion. But it just continues to do that.
Yeah, I think I've used the analogy before in the stream where it's like the guy who's like, I'm gonna try heroin, but it's gonna be okay because I'm gonna just do a little bit, and it's never been done this way before, so I'm gonna do it the safest way possible. And so then you try a little bit of that heroin, and then lo and behold, you're okay. Then you try a little bit more, and then eventually the heroin thing happens, and then so just much like communism. So you try a little bit of communism, a little bit of Marxism, sexualize your children. Pretty bad. Yeah. But there are worse things. Well, actually, I don't know what's worse than that. But either way, pretty bad. But we'll try a little bit of that. Try a little bit of the church is the enemy, and religion is the enemy, and moral compass is the enemy, and having morals is racist, and defending your country is racist, and just a little bit more. And gradually, they just ease you down to the point where you're just sunken completely into madness, and that's where we're headed. That is where we're headed.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only thing that's really pushed back and actually made a significant dent, and this can't be denied, the only thing that's pushed back at all is podcasters and social media.
That's true.
Elon Musk buying Twitter and podcasters have been the last line of defense. And if we come through this and we turn this all around, who do we get to thank? We get to thank the fact that everybody finally ditched legacy media, started watching other citizens having free debate, just like democracy was when it was founded in ancient Greece. And they met in a forum, and people were allowed to express their opinions openly and to the masses. We've gone full circle, and that is what is going to save democracy, is the fact that we are finally having discussions. We're arguing, we're debating. And at the same time, we also proved that we don't have a 13-minute attention span, as TV told us we did.
13-second, and there are more and more people getting involved, and we spoke about this in the last stream where people are literally going on to to look up these bills and to read what they're about, because now they know not to try, because they know, like you said that last time with this one bill, it wouldn't do this, but then all of a sudden we're fucked. So now people are actually going. So that warms my heart that people are actually getting that involved again. I don't know where it fell down. It used to be people were pretty involved with what their governments were doing. And I think with the advent of social media and stuff, people got kind of pulled away from civics and stuff like that. And I think it's important that we're back into it because now we have access to information very quickly. We have access to inside scoops and different forms of information and different tips, more so than ever before. So all those things that used to happen in the back room that you didn't know about, everything was done in secret and then you wouldn't find out about it for 2 years. Well, now they happen and we know about it the day that they happen. So now is actually where we could potentially meet that the age of technology and the age of civics, or the reimagination of civics, and we can put that all together and actually have proper democracy and open dialogue and a healthy society. And I think that might be what could save us, but we have to make something go differently than how it's going now. And having our our pastors in Calgary be arrested for protesting legally protesting drag queen story hour for kindergarten students. Okay. If anybody at all is okay with that, how it happened and the fact that he was arrested and then given bail conditions, you are the problem. You are a groomer. Period.
Yeah. It's not introducing the concept of transgender to children. It's introducing people's fetishes, people's personal sick fetishes, and that's just horrific. Now, here's one of my theories, Scott. What you mentioned, you don't like. It's hard to tell when people kind of disengaged from the government a little bit. One of my theories is it's part of the of a gradual invasive serfdom that they're trying to impose on people by making goods so expensive that people have to work their fingers to the bone like a dog, to the point where they don't have energy to even think about politics when they get home from work. How many people in our society have fallen victim to that? And it's not even through their own, their own apathy or anything other than the fact that they're just so burned out from travel. First of all, you get to a place like Toronto and people travel for an hour and a half each direction. Then they put in a hard day. Then they get home. Then they have dinner. Then they maybe play with their kids for 10 minutes. They don't have time. They don't have time to learn about democracy after that. But here's the solution: parallel economies. You can save yourself money. Get yourself a podcast app and start listening to some of these podcasts that we're pointing out to you. Listen to this stuff. You will learn everything you need to in a digestible way, not in a really dry, stale, boring, lame-ass way, but digestible with people who can actually speak and are actually interesting to listen to. And go out and work in a little tiny garden in your yard. If you have a small yard, 8 by 8, whatever it is, you're going to put money, you're going to leave extra money in your bank account. You're going to learn something while you're working, and you're going to get some exercise, breathe in some oxygen, and maybe get some positive endorphins that are going to counteract the fact that you are getting just smashed in the process of trying to do your job. And God bless you for continuing to drive our economy and continuing to do the best that you can do. But I tell you, you have to dig a little deeper. I don't ask this because it's not because I want you to give a fuck about my podcast, or that I want you to show up to the next election and vote. I want you to be better so that we can all be better. Just drag yourselves up, and it's going to take some work and some bootstrapping. But if we all join in this together and we look for the workarounds and the ways that we can do things on the high road, we can get there. You just have to dig deep, find it down in there, that thing that tells you democracy works, that feeling that you may have gotten when you were a kid and you heard about we won World War II, Hitler was gone, when you heard about the Soviet Union finally collapsed and no more concentration camps. That little buzz that you got, you can turn that into an everyday thing as you watch us put this thing back on its wheels and get going. The faster we all get on board and start pushing, the harder that we can push this thing up the hill. And that is how we turn it around. It's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy. But what's interesting is, like, a bit of an analogy here. You know, you've got a, I don't know, you've got a bus, you've got a school bus, and it's broken down, and it's on a bit of a hill, and the driver gets out and he's trying to push, and everybody's inside the school bus, and he can't get it too far. He can get like an inch or two, but he can't get it too far. And then 2 more people get out, and all of a sudden they get it, a few more inches, and then all of a sudden there's 20 people out, and they've gotten it, 10, 20 feet. And so the more people that get out and push, the further we get. And I think that's the thing that you need to remember, is that if you just sit back in the bus and enjoy the ride, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you get out and push a little bit, you'll get somewhere. And that is my my philosophy in a can for tonight, folks.
Fantastic. So what do you think, Scott? Is it almost time to wrap up? I got a gut feel to play us out if you want. Oh, we got yeah, well, we've been on for a while. Hour 15 already.
Yeah, hour 15. We if you want to play us out with Gutfeld, go ahead. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, I can I'm sure I can scrape together another clip if you don't have anything. Oh, I've got a Fox News one as well. Yeah, go ahead, roll us out on the Gutfeld if you want.
Okay. Gutfeld on relevant matters.
Don't show. Although Bill Hemmer found out I've been stealing his running shorts from the break room. But forget about inflation or our increasingly bellicose adversaries. Pay no mind to fentanyl, the rising crime rate, or drag queen story hour. That was a mistake. I'm talking about Mother Nature, and boy, it's become a mother. Of course, this real threat to humanity, it's never really gone away. Its delivery date just keeps getting changed. The New York Times delivers this ominous warning. Climate change is speeding toward catastrophe. The next decade is crucial, the UN panel says. Quote, Earth is likely to cross a critical threshold for global warming within the next decade. The next decade, and nations will need to make an immediate and drastic shift away from fossil fuels to prevent the planet from overheating dangerously beyond that level. According to a major new report released on Monday. A new report, right? Huh? It eerily sounds like the same one Al Gore and the rest of these lying, fear-mongering bitches have been screaming at us for the last 40 years. Yeah. Hey, but so what, right? You peasants need to suffer, or the whole world will be doomed.
The whole world will be doomed. And that's what you're going to get with us, by the way, in this stream, is that we will be talking about one thing. It's like almost like ADD, and then we'll be talking about something completely different 10 seconds later, and you'll be completely confused. So get used to it. If you don't like it, we'll try and do better next time. By the way, Jay, just so you know, nobody else can hear you because you have, once again, suffered a ghost mutation.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you don't like it, you can always just sell your soul to MSNBC or CBC and just go down the path that leads to Stalingrad.
Yeah. Exactly, or you can just go watch the CBC, which should actually, from what I understand, they're going to introduce that as torture to prisoners in Canada from now on.
I'm certain they would. I'll take the bamboo under the fingernails. I will.
I'll take the firing squad personally.
There you go. Well, that's easy though.
But again, it's not going to be as painful. So I'm gonna take the least painful route out of that one. Okay, we've had enough of you guys for one day. I mean, you guys have been so abusive in the chat. Actually, I guess we should say, first of all, thank you for those of us that joined us live. We haven't really been chatting with you much tonight, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, sorry, Facebook buddies, you got to get on YouTube or to actually interact. We cannot. If you're commenting on my page right now, I'm not on Facebook. I'm doing a podcast, so I can't do much for you unless you get onto Rumble or YouTube.
Yeah, we can only go to a few platforms at a time, or else it sucks all the power from the power grid into this void, and then it creates some sort of depression in the. No, I'm just kidding. We can only just do that because that's all StreamYard allows us to do. We use StreamYard to broadcast. So that's just what you get. You get what you get with this stream.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the Unacceptables Truthly Thursday. We'll see you again on Sunday for Sunday Fun Day, where you will be almost assured, not assured, but almost assured to have just as much fun, if not more fun, than you did today. And I know that's going to be hard to beat, but we're going to do our best. All right, kids, much love.